Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. Welcome to the first Today in Julie Andrews history video for 2022. Today we're talking about Thoroughly Modern Millie. Thoroughly Modern Millie was made by Universal Pictures and it was released on the 21st of March 1967, so 55 years ago. But also the movie itself is set in 1922.
What they're forgetting is this is 1922.
So 100 years since then. It was directed by George Roy Hill, who had worked with Julie the previous year on Hawaii. The writer, Richard Moss, also based a lot of it on this very short-lived musical from the 1950s called Chrysanthemum. And up until very, very recently, I had no idea about that. As I've said many times before, it was also partly based on The Boyfriend. Or at the very least, exists because of The Boyfriend. I wanted to make a movie of The Boyfriend, but they couldn't. So they tweaked a few things, changed a few details, got the original Broadway star of The Boyfriend, Julie, and poof, Thoroughly Modern Millie exists. And actually, a few years later, when they actually got around to making a Boyfriend movie, Julie was actually offered a role in it. She declined. Anyway, back to Millie. It had a budget of $6 million and it raked in $40 million worldwide. It was nominated for 7 Oscars and it won one for Best Music. Carol Channing won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress, and it was nominated for another 5 of those, as well as 4 Golden Laurel Awards, of which it won 2. Julie won 1, and then it got 1 for Best Comedy. In addition to Julie, the film stars Mary Tyler Moore, James Fox, John Gavin, Carol Channing, and Beatrice Lillie. So as I said, the movie's set in the 1920s, and it follows Millie Delmont, who has just moved to New York and is looking to find a job as a stenographer with the sole intent of marrying her boss. Because she's modern. She makes friends with the newest young woman who's arrived at the hotel, Miss Dorothy Brown. And of course her plan of marrying the boss doesn't go quite as well as she hoped because there's another guy. Basically, it's a lot of crazy shenanigans. Also, the woman running the hotel is selling girls into white slavery. So that got dark quick, didn't it? Actually, in all honesty, this movie has aged pretty badly in some ways. I do want to talk about all the problematic elements of the movie actually, but I'm going to save that for a separate video because I want to make sure I handle it well. So for today's video, it's just going to be my thoughts. And yes, it is a musical, but it's kind of like Victor Victoria or Darling Lily in that it's strictly diegetic. You could make the argument that Jimmy is not diegetic and that Millie is not actually singing in universe, but for the most part, it's completely diegetic. But there are also a couple of songs in there that are undoubtedly songs, but they're played much more just as a soundtrack like you would have to a non-musical film. That being the opening one and Poor Butterfly. Poor Butterfly was obviously not written for the movie. But the big iconic number that's playing over the credits, no one is actually singing that, in universe or not. It's just Julie in the background like you would have the soundtrack for any other film. And that's kind of interesting. Also, that song is my favourite. And yes, when you sit down and really think about the movie, it's very problematic in a lot of ways and has not aged well. But despite all that, I freaking love this one. And I think a lot of other people do. The faces Julie makes during this film, her expressions alone, steal the show. I love how a lot of Millie's inner dialogue comes up as the old silent film dialogue cards. I don't know if that's what they're really called, but you know what I mean. Millie is so just, she knows what she wants and she's determined to get it. She is, after all, a modern. She's so delightfully naive, but you can tell that she cares about everyone so much. And she genuinely thinks the best of everyone, which is why she's so blinded to the fact that Mrs. Mears is selling all the girls in the hotel into sex slavery. And then we have Mary Tyler Moore as Miss Dorothy. Miss Dorothy is so dipsy. But I mean that in a good way. Millie can get a bit dipsy at times, but she's more naive than she is dipsy. But Miss Dorothy is so much more dipsy. But like Millie, she's also very sweet and caring and genuine. Carol Channing as Muzzy is just delightfully crazy. John Gavin as Trevor Graydon is just hilarious. And he doesn't even have to do anything. The circumstances that the narrative forces his character into mean he can just play off those situations and it's hysterical. And then of course James Fox as Jimmy. He's just so much fun. Basically everyone's crazy, but in an enjoyable way. Even Mrs. Mears. While she is one of the biggest yikeses in the problematic department of this movie, Beatrice Lillie did an amazing job with the role. It was actually the final film she ever made. It was actually in the early stages of Alzheimer's when she filmed the movie, and she would often forget her lines, so Julie would often read her lines to her, which is just so something that Julie Andrews would do. Oh, and the elevator. Mary Tyler Moore at one point said that every time she saw an elevator she would think of Thoroughly Modern Millie. And I agree. I lived on campus for my first year of university, and every time I was alone in the lift, I would do a dance. What else are you gonna do in a lift? Stand there like a boring person? No, I like to do a little tap dance, even if the lift's operational. I was so bummed when the novelization didn't have a broken elevator. It's like one of the best parts of the film. And yes, it is a great movie, and I would absolutely recommend it. And I hope the parts that have aged poorly will not affect your enjoyment. If nothing else, they might be a good way to open a conversation. But for now, that's everything I've got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know. What do you think of Thoroughly Modern Millie? What's your favourite song? Stay safe, guys. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next time. So long, farewell!